Hello, welcome back to Leaders in Conversation with me, Annie Townend. Today's guest is Somya Agrawal, and the title of our conversation is Engage, Enable and Empower Through Your Leadership. Leaders in Conversation is the podcast in which I talk with leaders about their own life and leadership stories to encourage you to reflect on your values, beliefs, passion and purpose, and to inspire you to be even more confident and courageous in your leadership. If you're not already, please do subscribe to the podcast, review and share it. Thank you. I had the joy of meeting Somya in June 2024 when she joined us for a walking partnerships day in Surrey, UK. Today, together, Somya and I delve into the people, places and experiences that have made her the person and the leader she is. Welcome, Somya.
Thank you, Annie. And I would just like to say, first of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be here and to be able to have this conversation face to face with you as well.
It's really exciting to be sitting here with you, Somya, and to be in conversation with you, having walked side by side with you through the woods in Surrey earlier this year. I'd like to start by asking you, what are your 3 key insights that you're going to be sharing through your experiences of people and places that have shaped you and your leadership?
I would say that my first insight would start with where I started as a leader. I became the Deputy Director in the Civil Service, so as a senior leader at the UK Health Security Agency. And when I'd been given the job, I remember when my director had said to me, Somya, it's time to become the conductor and not the trumpet player. Incredible words that I still have on a post-it note on my window to this day, because it suddenly made you realise that actually the transition from manager to leader is not an easy one, and people sometimes seem to forget that. Suddenly it's your duty and your responsibility to ensure that your team are aligned with the strategy and vision, ensure that you get to know your team, the engagement and the connection, so that you can apply the right roles and responsibilities to the right expertise in your team. And the analogy I use is ensure that all the cogs are turning, because then you have to think that at any point, if any cog slows down or is struggling or is burning out, you need to go and zone in onto that cog and check in with that person. How are you doing? Do you need some time away? Do I need to reprioritize or repurpose your work? And that engagement step is incredibly important. I remember when I'd been given the deputy director role for a team called Product and Delivery, and there were 2 different teams coming together who knew of each other but hadn't worked together. There was this face-to-face day, and I said, okay, we're going to rejig the agenda a little bit, and I'd like us to all get together because we haven't worked together. And we got into one room, and I got people to sit down, mix up, and I said, right, talk to each other about what you do. And those on the other side of the team, think about, how can I help that person? Actually, can their role help me in any way? What skill set can I help them to accomplish our mission? And I was like, how will this go? And I remember it was wonderful. Well, someone was like, oh, I've been looking for a person to help me with that. Or that is something that I've been working on. Let me engage with you. And when we went away and got back onto our screens and back on team meetings, oh yeah, I remember when person A had said this, I'm going to reach out to them. And it was really wonderful to form that connection, because ultimately it really helped build a team. And when you do that, then you're able to build a high-functioning team and be able to apply that expertise and be able to execute your mission. That is my first one. My second one is the ripple effect. And quite simply, that's leading by example. I think it's incredibly important, especially as a senior leader, to remember to watch and listen from other leaders around you. When I first became a senior leader, and I'm not a massive fan of the phrase imposter syndrome, but I remember thinking, am I good enough? Majority of the senior leadership team was made up of males, older and more experienced. So I was like, what, am I worthy? And it's bad to think that, but you do go through those moments. And so I actively watched and listened, and I took good learnings from the other leaders around me. And then I took that to my own team as well. I remembered that I too am always being watched. And therefore, you have to be careful about how you communicate. And that can also be in times like feedback and challenges. We took this assessment as an SLT team, and it was all about how well do we function as a senior leadership team. And actually, we did quite well. But one area of weakness was we don't challenge each other enough. So we're not courageous enough. Suddenly, we put that into motion, and we were finding better solutions. Because someone was saying, and it's important how you say it, they weren't saying, I disagree. Do you think it would be better if we also looked at it from this angle? And it was how you have to give that feedback with kindness, because then you build this level of trust and you allow yourself to be vulnerable. And when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, then others can also see, well, actually, it's not a sign of weakness. I'm able to express my emotions. I'm able to be able to say what I can. And you create a dialogue that's incredibly open. Don't want to pressure anyone or force anyone, but with that passion, with that leading by example, they also were able to step forward, grow their confidence and feel more empowered. And my final one, which I think is very important, is simply dare to enter the arena. Ask what you think is a silly question, because I can guarantee you that most of the time someone else in that room is thinking, phew, I'm so glad they asked that question because I was totally thinking it. And it's incredibly important to do that because you have to show that you're actively listening. And actually the person you're asking the question to thinks, that person is listening and is showing a genuine interest in what is going on here, because you don't necessarily expect everyone to understand straight away. And that's the same with your feedback. You know, if you give it with kindness, then you accept it with grace and you are then able to apply it. And I've seen that improvement in myself. Someone might have said something about me. I call it constructive criticism. And it was given in a way of, this is great, but this could be better. And because of that, I felt confident in applying it. And I would say, what can I do to make that better? What can I do to make myself better?
Wonderful, Somya. I love those three key insights that have come from your actual experience of leading people, of differentiating leading from managing, and what a big leap that is. And crucially, helping each other along the way, and how you helped the team to connect with each other, which then stood them in great stead. And the ripple effect, the importance of leading by example, and of being that we are being watched all the time, even when we don't think we are. People are reading us, they are noticing how we're showing up, especially as leaders, and experiencing the impact that we have on them. And finally, being brave enough to enter the arena, which we are doing today here in our podcast conversation. And I'm already really loving being in conversation with you, hearing your experiences. So tell me, Somya, who are the people, the places, and some of the other key experiences, turning points in your life that have shaped you and made you this leader that you are today?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with people. And starting with people, I would start with my mum. My mum has taught me the importance of resilience and working hard. When we were younger, she made a lot of sacrifices to ensure that her three daughters, I'm one of three girls. People call us very strong, independent, and loud. These are not our own words. But being three girls, my mum wanted to ensure that we had every great opportunity. As a millennial, I grew up in a culture where, as early childhood, girls should, yes, be educated, but should learn to cook and clean early, and boys should work as soon as possible, and in a way prime us for marriage and the future. But my mum just thought, nope, that's not my daughters. I'm going to give them the best I can in the best way possible. She worked at the BBC, where she herself was exposed to lots of different avenues and experiences as well. So I think there she recognised that actually the opportunities are limitless. Now, we come from your average working class family, so it was expensive for my mum to put us all through private education, to send us to as many different activities and clubs as possible. But what it did was give us this incredible exposure. I probably did multiple dance types, played multiple musical instruments, swam, air cadets, brownies, Hindi lessons, the works, but it was brilliant. And this exposure, or even just meeting different types of people, was great, but it came with sacrifice. And my mum probably had to give up some of her ambitions to ensure that her children could have everything. And one of the other things that I used to love is my mum used to have this little desk calendar, and on there would be a quote for every single day. The 1st of January should say, get into my bed and we're going to read every quote. That's 365 quotes, and we're going to learn the importance and the moral behind it. And I remember two of my favourite being that she's regularly repeats to me. One of them is, the bad news is that time flies. The good news is that you're the pilot. And it taught me so much about time management. And the second one is, aim for the stars and reach the treetops. Because if you try your ultimate best, then even your good enough will be enough. And I always loved hearing things like that. And because she went against the grain, and she had to, in a way, maybe fight my grandparents a little bit in giving us the opportunities that we could, if things didn't go to plan, she'd be like, right, bounce back with confidence. What's plan B? And so that resilience I got from her, that always have a plan B. And there's also this thing, when I was growing up, we didn't naturally say, oh, I love you now that we are older. We came from the family where, and I know a lot of people may face this, which is, Mom, I got 90%. That's great. What happened to the 10%? Sometimes it'll be frustrating. But I recognise where she was trying to enforce this encouragement and growth as well. Sometimes there were times when I was like, this is adding pressure. And I don't know if it is encouraging, but I knew it was when I gave a speech at a wedding one time of a friend I went to school with. And she was there, and my other friends and their parents. I was giving this speech, and my mum was like in my eyesight. I gave it, and I was like, oh, I hope this goes well. I came down to the table, relieved that it was over, went over to the table, and my mum just went, 10 out of 10. My mum just gave me a 10 out of 10. So it was very encouraging. And then the second person I would say is my dad. My dad taught me the importance of empathy, being kind. He was the kindest, funniest, most empathetic man you will meet. I like to say I got it from him. But he really, really was. And he passed away a year ago, almost to the day. And I remember the house being filled with people, and not a single person had said anything like, what was his career like? How much money was in his bank account? Well, you know, all those kind of questions. How did he, it was story sharing. It was, he was so kind, and we did this together, and this experience, and he was loyal, and all these wonderful stories, to the point where in that first week when we were hearing those stories, I would go through these moments of guilt, because I was like, I should be grieving and crying, and here I am in jubilation and laughing because of these wonderful stories about my dad. And he really taught me the importance of empathy and being kind. I would say the other people in my life are my sisters. My older sister, who you have had the pleasure of meeting before.
I have. And I was so pleased when I put two and two together, having worked with your sister Priya. Yes. And what a privilege that was to have worked with her and her team.
She remembers you fondly, and I'm so glad that your work had an impact, because I've watched her. She's academically brilliant. She's been incredible in her professional career, but she does it with passion. And when she shares that passion and purpose, it just resounds like vibration through her team. And she's really got this great energy. She moves around the world with her job, with her husband and her daughter, but she embraces life as much as possible. And I really think I've kind of got that riveting, enthusiastic energy from her, which I love. She is my role model. I probably don't tell her enough. I should tell her more, but I do. I really look up to her. And my younger sister, who comes with so much tact, diplomacy, calmness, kindness, encouragement. She is actually innately a leader of our family. She's the glue. If there's a problem, we look to her for a solution. She's the youngest. But it's because she's built this relationship with each of us, which is so open and trusting. And if we're nervous or worried about something, she just inspires you with encouragement. She's like, give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? And if the worst happens, we are here. And I loved that. And then finally, in terms of people, it'll be my tribe. I think your tribe and the people you surround yourself with is very important. My tribe used to be much bigger now and is much smaller, focused and more concentrated. I'm so happy for that. It's ex-colleagues, it's university friends, school friends, current colleagues, whoever it may be. But it's important to pick out the people that inspire you, that motivate you, but also know, again with kindness, when to tell you you may be wrong. Because ultimately what that brings, I'm someone who finds it quite hard to open up. But what my tribe had done, because of the style they had used, I found myself opening up. And that invokes authenticity and individuality, which I personally believe are two very important tools in leadership kit.
Thank you for sharing something about your mum and your dad and your sisters, all of whom sound amazing. I'm thinking how very exciting it would be to get you and Priya together, and perhaps your sister too, the three of you together. And when you think about the places that have shaped you, Somya.
Quite simply put, I would have to say probably around the world. Now, I know that sounds like a weird one. It's because, and I come back to my family again, when my family and I travel, we don't do really the typical kind of holiday, which is go to a resort or stay in one villa for a time. It's get to the airport, pick up a car and go and see that country as much as possible. But the way it works in our family is, Dad would have been watching some documentary and be like, I want to go to Australia. And this happened. We're going on a 3-week trip. We're going to go to Australia, and actually New Zealand's next door. So let's come and see as much of Australia and New Zealand as we can in 3 weeks and make it happen. And so the three of us would be these executors. And it was just brilliant. It really showed me the importance of teamwork because each of us had a role to play. And actually, if one person wasn't playing their part, it would fall apart and it wouldn't work. Or there'll be something missing, or someone else would have to pick up the lag. But it really helped me work out teamwork and the importance of allocating roles and responsibilities. So that's how I've kind of incorporated being around the world and how I put that into my own life, making a plan, and in my leadership by ensuring that everyone has the right roles and responsibilities that they can apply with their skill set.
And helping each other. So that's
Exactly.
Speaking to one of your key insights, leadership insights around helping each other and of being the conductor rather than the trumpeter, but equally all of you being conductors in your own leadership and working together, helping each other, supporting each other. I love the being kind with each other and challenging each other with kindness. Two things that are really important to me and resonate with the work that I do. And absolutely remember speaking with one of my guests who talks about be kind, be direct, be yourself, Raj Kumar. I'm also thinking about your mum's a quote for every day of the year and how she sat with you in bed and read them all out. I think that's really tremendous, steering you conducting you into the year, which is lovely. And it sounds as if she also dared to enter the arena, as in whilst sacrificing some of the things she might have liked to have done, she encouraged the three of you three girls, into being the women that you are today and the leaders that you are today, very much so. What were some of the key turning points and experiences? You've shared some already, but what other key experiences, turning points in your life have shaped you and made you the leader you are today?
So I've had many experiences, but I'm going to probably highlight just two of them. So one is, starting on a bit more of a sadder note, the loss of my father. I lost him last year and it was quite unexpected. He went through a bit of an illness for a month or so before, but it was quite tough because I hadn't experienced being by someone's deathbed, especially when it's someone so close to you. It was heartbreaking. I always tell myself, I'm not the person I was last year. Last year, I still have a dad, but last year I had a living father. And this year I don't have a living father. So it does have an impact on you. But what I had seen is that we were going through a very crucial time at work and there were a lot of projects bubbling away. And this was halfway through the year that this happened. But because I had spent time engaging with my team and had allowed myself to be vulnerable and had said to them, there are times when, I'm not feeling so great today, inviting them to also be able to say, I'm not feeling my best. That actually, when that bereavement period was over and I went back to work, which can be a nerve-wracking time for anyone to go back to reality, I remember my team were brilliant. In fact, my team and cross-functioning teams that we'd worked with, they had got to know me on a level where they knew that Somya doesn't want the pities and the sympathy. What she needs is to be able to crack on with the work. But they recognised, because they knew me, that if I needed time away, it could be anyone in the team, not necessarily my deputy. It could be someone from another team as well, because I'd been open. I think, Somya, you should take a step away. Just take a bit of a break for now, just because I am someone who I find it very difficult to walk away from my work, and a lot of people do. So though his loss was incredibly sad and life-changing, because of the vulnerability, because of the authenticity, because of the individual and myself that I had shared with my team, they were able to support me and recognise as well when I had to go away. And the overwhelming love and care just flooded through. It just absolutely flooded through. And I would really love to know, Annie, because I know that you had a similar experience with losing your father. What change did it have on you, or what impact?
Thank you for asking me, Somya. Well, both of my parents have died. My father died 2 years before my mother, and I wasn't with him when he died, nor was my sister. I was travelling back from vacation. She was on vacation. What I remember about that time is that I felt and feel to this day very privileged that I had helped him to have the death that he wanted to have, even though we weren't there. He'd never wanted to go into a nursing home or hospital, and he was able to die in his own home, which really mattered to him. So although we weren't there to be with him, and I hadn't appreciated just how not being there with him would actually upset me more, having been there when my mother died. Both me and my sister were either side of my mother's deathbed. Having heard the phrase used often quite lightly, somebody being on their deathbed, now I've had the experience of being with my mother when she was on her deathbed and there when she took her last breath. Even now, I can feel the huge privilege of being with her in that moment. And I think I wasn't able to talk about her death because I'd never experienced anything quite like it. This is probably as much as I've ever talked about being there with her openly, publicly, and to this day I'm changed by that. I think the other thing, Somya, that I also recognise that in the same 12-month period, I had the privilege of being there for the birth of my first grandchild. So I've been changed by both. And I think how you have shared and you're saying about your being open, that in our being open with each other, we encourage openness in others. And I think that the experience of loss, we are speaking about the loss of loved ones. I think the experience of loss is something which, as leaders, being able to talk about is really important. And I can remember hearing David Whyte, who is a poet, talking about loss and the ability of leaders to hold their losses and in the holding to be able to speak about them in our own time and encouraging each other to be able to share what is a human experience, something that we will all experience at some time or other in our lives. So thank you for being open.
I mean, it's brilliant that you were able to be present at the time when you lost your mother. But even though you weren't able to be there beside your father, I love that you had said, but I'm really glad I played a part in ensuring he went how he wanted. But I always encourage people, and my friends will know, they would always be like, you always look for a silver lining in every situation. I'm like, well, sometimes you have to. Sometimes it's helpful, it's healthy. And that was one thing we did with Dad. We were like, we must live out his legacy. We've lost him in person, but actually let's keep his story alive. And just in 1 year alone, the things we've done, we scattered his ashes in Bournemouth in the UK, one of his favourite places to be. I did a walk, I climbed Mount Snowdon with my friends for charity for British Heart Foundation, and it was a cardiac illness that he had towards the end of his life. So that was really rewarding. And also we went to Mwanza in Tanzania in East Africa. My parents were both born in India, but my dad had a lot of his growing up in childhood in East Africa. So he always wanted to take us to his first home in school, and he never got to. So we said, we're going to make that trip. And with contributions of donations from friends and family, we were able to go to his school and actually get solar panels installed, because they were telling us how they would have power cuts over there for up to 2 weeks. It was incredibly rewarding and humbling, but it was also really lovely to, for some time, walk literally through my father's footsteps from when he was a younger boy. So I encourage anyone who's ever going through grief is the silver lining is living out their legacy. Remember the memories, open and share as much as you can. It feels so good to talk about the great things that your loved one has done through life.
Somya, thank you. Everything you say is very encouraging of others to live, to embrace, to share their stories. As we come to the close of our conversation, what are your 3 key encouragements to listeners?
My first one is going to be engage. And that is all about ensuring that you provide connection. That is connection within your team, and that is connection with other stakeholders. And the way you do that is, like we've said, is by leading by example and by ensuring that people get to understand each other, bring their best self through, build that rapport and that trust so that you can apply people's right skill sets to the right expertise. I then believe that once you've done the engagement piece, you are then in a better place to enable. You are then able to have a relationship with your internal and external stakeholders that invites collaboration. Remember, a leader cannot be everywhere all the time. So actually, you need your team to watch you, learn from you. You also learn from your team, by the way. A leader is also not always right and often makes mistakes and needs help from their team as well. So you enable that. You say to them, why don't you lead on that meeting? And why don't you come along to that meeting so you have a better understanding of what's going on? And then finally, once you engage with energy and passion and get everyone aligned on your vision, and enable with empathy by ensuring that you also provide feedback with kindness, then you will have a team that is left feeling very empowered. You are crediting their expertise. You are championing them and encouraging their work. You are helping them learn and develop. You are growing them as a bigger and better person in themselves. Because I always say that the best part of being a leader is when your team members come up to you, and it's sad when you lose someone, especially someone great in your team, but I love it when they say, I've got a new opportunity and it's bigger and better than this one. And it gives me goosebumps now. It feels incredibly empowering to be like, wow, you are now ready for your next rung on the ladder. And it's incredible. And it's important to remember that it's not about the destination. It's about the journey you take. So remember to take your team with you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Somya. Thank you so much for this conversation. As we come to the close, there is a question that I know you haven't prepared for because I'm going to ask you now, what's the conversation as a result of our conversation today that you will go to have, and who will that person be with?
The conversation that we had about sharing our personal life experiences and how we chose to be open and show up and not shy away from sharing that, and the feeling I got, like the connection I felt from you sharing that story with me, it made me feel like I want to do that with someone else. I've got a friend who also lost her father actually a number of years ago. But just because it happened 10 years ago, it doesn't mean it's any less painful. So I feel like I want to maybe be able to go to her and say, is there anything that you want to open up about? Is there anything that you want to expose to me? Because you know what? There are days that you may not be able to be you. You may not be able to be the best version of yourself. So actually in those days, just remember to be human. Just remember to think about the other person. Just remember to talk to people in the way that you would like to be spoken to. And I feel like I just want to do that. I just want to go and have valuable conversations with someone where they feel like they can trust me and they can be authentic with me and they can be themselves as much as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you for being yourself with me today.
Absolute pleasure.
All your encouragements to listeners and viewers of our podcast. Somya, how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way for them to get in touch with you and maybe find out even more and even have a conversation with you?
Oh, wow. First of all, I'd like to say I would love anyone to be able to approach me. I love these new and inviting conversations. You can find me on LinkedIn under Somya Agrawal. And also, if you want to know me on a bit more of a personal level, then you can find me on Instagram as well. My handle is @SomyaAgr.
Thank you, Somya. Huge thank you to you for your sharing, and a huge thank you as well to my support team who helped me create the podcast, Brown Bear Studios today, and Coco O'Brien, who helps with the marketing and promotion of the podcast along with Conscious Marketing Group. A huge thank you to them, and a huge thank you to you, the listener. Please do follow, subscribe, listen to the podcast, and if you would like to be in touch with me, please do get in touch via my website, annietownend.com. Thank you.